Hello, welcome to your video on relations and functions. By the end of the video, you will be able to find the domain and range of a function and determine if a relation is indeed a function. So let's get started. Before we start doing math, we have to know some terms, some vocabulary. The first one, a relation, is a pairing of numbers in one set, the domain, with numbers in another set, which is the range. Typically, it is written as ordered pairs, x and y. Domain is the x values in a table, or the x coordinate. Range then is the set of y values. So it would be in a table, it would be the y column. On a graph, it's the y, all that good stuff. Y is range, domain is x. Okay, identifying functions using mapping diagrams. This is important to know how to do. So I first look at part A. So it gives you some coordinate points, and that you can put into a table, but just by looking, you can identify the domain because that's the x. And if you remember, the x, it's always x, y when we're talking about coordinates. Okay, so that's where we get domain because domain is the x and the range is the y. And so just by looking at those coordinates, you can pull out the domain and the range. Then if you make a table, this one is a mapping diagram, is not completely a table, but it's pretty much the same idea. Here you have your x, your y, and then you look across. The arrow that's why it's called mapping, because there's arrows, and it tells you what will happen, what you will get as for your range, given your domain. And if you look, each domain here goes to one range value, and so that is a function. The second example, again, domain and range are given here. If we list them out, okay, the domain, the 4 goes to the 3, the 5 goes to the 8, the 6 goes to the 4 and the 5. Because that domain, that x value, goes to two different y locations, it is not a function. Right. You can also identify functions using the vertical line test, which is what VLT is. If you put a pencil vertically, your finger vertically, whatever it might be, it'll give you whether or not it's a vertical line. So this one, if you're going to put a vertical line test, so you have your finger and you're going to move across the vertically. Okay, you can only hit your line at one point at a time. So if I put my finger here, it is hitting on a bunch of different points. Same thing here. If I keep moving, here's a bunch of different points. Keep moving, here's a bunch of different points. It's all hitting at the same point. That is failing the vertical line test. So this picture is not a function. Here's another example for you. If I do the vertical line test, okay, as it goes across, am I hitting just one point every time? The answer is yes, you are. Each time you go across, there's only one point when it's crossing. So this one is indeed a function. Right, evaluating functions. How do we do that? It looks a little bit different here because we don't have y equals in our example, but that's okay. The same type of idea. So the function w of x, that's how you say it. You have the letter, and then you say of, and then whatever in the parentheses part. Equals 250x, represent the number of words you can read in x minutes. And then the question is, how many can you read in 8 minutes? So here we go. W of x, fancy way of saying y. Okay, that is y. So y equals 250x. Okay, do be familiar with seeing it written this way, especially when we, as the year goes on. Then you will insert whatever you're trying to solve for your x. So I wanted 8 minutes, so I'm going to put an 8 in the x spot. That's just how we write it. Okay, then 250, and then put the 8 in the x spot. Okay, so now our problem is saying W of 8 equals 250 times 8. So W of 8 equals, and you just multiply them together, you get 2,000. Okay, so your answer is you're going to read 2,000, oops, not pages, 2,000 words in that 8 minutes. Okay, being able to find the range. Sometimes you will be given a domain, and then it's going to ask you what the range is. So this is how you're going to do it. The domain of f of x equals -1.5 x plus 4 is, and then it tells you what all the domain numbers are here. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 is the domain. What is the range? Okay, so you're just going to make a table. Very easy. So here's your x, and here's your y. Okay, now we talked about what y really is. The other way of writing it is f of x. Okay, and that's really what your y is. So think of it like your y. Don't let it scare you. Then I have, and it tells me what my domain is. It's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So then I need to use the equation that they give me to solve for y. So here we go. -1.5 times 1 plus 4. That equals 2.5. So f of x is 2.5. Then I have -1.5 times 2 plus 4. That will give me an answer of 1. Same thing, keep going. And this will give me -2. Okay, so now I've figured it out. I have solved the problem because the problem was asking for the range. So here is your range. And then we can write that just like they wrote domain as a list like that with the weird little elliptical-y thingy. I don't know what it's called. This little thing. You can do the same thing. And you're just going to write it in order. So -2, -0.5, 1, and 2.5. And typically you will see that written in order from least to greatest. Alright, practice for you. You have 3 questions. Please make sure you are fully answering the question and showing all of your work. Whatever is required, you need to do, show all of it. And then check in with me for the answers. Wait, there was a mistake on the first one. The second coordinate should be -2, 2, not 2, -2. So please make that adjustment. Alright, now to answer your questions, or give you your answers, I suppose. The domain. For the number 1, the domain is -2, -1, 4, 7. The range is 1, 2, -4, -7. And then it is a 1x to 1y ratio, so it is in fact a function. Number 2, Okay, if you have W of X, how many words can you read in 6 minutes? Number 2 is 1,500 words. Make sure you have all of your work shown. And number 3, what is the range? You should have -8, 0, 8, 16. If you have any questions, be sure to ask. That is the end of your video. Thank you for watching. We will be working on this in class and bring any questions that you may have. Have a good one.